So we are going to start with an introduction, a video talking about inclusive education and what happens in a classroom. So this is a real concrete experience, giving you the possibility to start thinking and reasoning about inclusivity and inclusive education. Then we will split into breakout rooms. So you will have the possibility to discuss together with the Madagascar colleagues and experts, so talking about their own personal experiences when it comes to an inclusive education system. After that, we will come back together within the plenary room so that we can discuss all together about what we were able to learn. So we're not going to have a presentation, we're not going to have a PowerPoint presentation, no slides at all, because we thought that it is better if we exchange our experiences. So on the Padlet, that is to say the link that we have shared within the chat function, you can find some videos about the design of inclusive education. So feel free to watch those videos individually, but the time we have for this webinar, during this time, we really would like to discuss all together, to share our experiences and know-how. So this is what we're going to do during our webinar. I am Denis Hofer, and I work in Switzerland, in Zurich, and I am a consultant when it comes to inclusive education and learning. I really would like to thank Nadine and Beatrice and RECI in general for providing us with this important opportunity in order to talk about inclusive education. I would like to give the floor to Beatrice just to quickly talk about RECI, that is to say the organizer of this webinar. And after that, we can deep dive into our main topic.
Thank you very much, Denis. And welcome everyone to our OROS on inclusive education. I'm very happy to be hosting and co-organizing this event together with our member CBM. So I am the director of RECI, and the RECI is a Swiss network for education and international cooperation. We are a network of a little bit more than 30 members, mainly organizations working in education and international cooperation, but also individual experts. And 2 years ago, we started to introduce this online format, which we call OROS. So we're having an OROS now, and an OROS is an online RECI Open Space. It means we have open spaces throughout the year, and we invite our members to fill those spaces with topics and discussions that are relevant for them. And as Denis already explained, the spirit of these OROS are really to reinforce mutual learning. We assume that all of us who are here, we are experts in one way or another in terms of the topic that we're talking about. Even if you're coming with questions, even if you're coming with a lot of questions what that is, and you don't feel like an expert, you are an expert for this group because you can provide the relevant questions that are helping to understand and dig into the topic that we're talking about. So welcome again, and I'm handing back to Denis to start the discussion.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. So just to give you a general overlook or idea about us as participants, on the Padlet, you can find a map, exactly in here. And if you click on the map, you will have the possibility to see where the different participants come from. This map doesn't include all the participants, but at least it provides you a general idea with the main countries of our colleagues. So we have colleagues from different African countries, Western African countries, Madagascar, Northern African countries, Tunisia and Egypt. Then, of course, we have some colleagues and ONGs from Switzerland, that is to say, for example, RECI. And then you can also see some colleagues from Macedonia and Moldova, and then Germany. So as you can see from this map, we have a huge variety of countries. Different colleagues working in Switzerland, in Europe, and in Africa as well, especially in Africa, actually. So thank you very much for your active participation. And as I was saying before, on the Padlet as well, you will find the preparation or pre-reading material. So if you click here on the pre-reading area, you will find some videos, the videos I was mentioning about. So videos about inclusive education available in English and French. And you will also find the website of UNICEF talking about the inclusive education for handicapped children, for disabled children. So this is just for you actually to have the possibility to get further information about this topic. I have already talked about the program for today's webinar. The program is again present on the Padlet, and you can see it in here. And I think that we can start right now with the video that I was mentioning before during my introduction. I know that this video was realized by a person living in Canada, so it is about inclusive education in Canada. But I'm deeply convinced that this video at the same time can give you a great idea about inclusive education in general. So you can watch the video, and after that, we will have the possibility to talk and discuss all together about your thoughts, your ideas, your comments. And I also would like to share with you a question in order to guide you in your discussions. This question will pop up in a minute in the chat function. So I'm going to share it with you all in the chat so that you will have the possibility to use it as a guidance for the upcoming discussion. Just a second, please. Okay, here is the question. What are the key elements that contribute to truly inclusive education, and how we can effectively implement them? So this is the main question that we would like to propose you, again, just to guide you throughout your discussions. But first, let's watch the video all together.
Ça. Vous avez le vidéo.
This is the video.
Hi, my name is Shelley Moore, and I'm a third-year PhD student at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. As Canadians, we have a reputation for finding and embracing the strength in our diversity. This value, however, hasn't been reflected in our classrooms, which still segregate students by ability, especially students with developmental disabilities. There's a gap in our understanding about what we know inclusive education to be, philosophically, versus what we understand and the importance of understanding inclusion in our practice. This is the question I'm trying to answer in my research, is how can we find the value in the day-to-day practice in our classrooms in terms of inclusive education? So how am I going to explain this to you? Now I can sit here and try and describe this, or we could have a little bit more fun. Why don't we go bowling? So let's talk about bowling. You have 10 pins, you have 2 balls, and you have a lane. The goal is to knock down as many pins as you can. But if you don't get them all, it's okay because you have another chance. But when I bowl and roll the ball down the middle and I don't knock them all down, what often ends up happening to me is that there's 2 pins left standing on either end and they stare at you. It's the 7-10 split and it's the hardest shot in bowling. How is bowling like teaching? The ball was the lesson, the pins are the kids. We aim for the middle, we do the best we can. The pins that are left standing, we often have another chance to kind of get to them, but at the end of the day, those 2 pins that are staring, looking at you, are kids who need the most support and are kids who need the most challenge. So we end up choosing one, and the other one is left standing. I just took all the fun out of bowling. Now, I don't know how many times you've watched professional bowling, but I spent an afternoon watching professional bowling, and let me tell you, there was not one bowler who rolled that ball down the middle of the lane. They throw the ball down the lane at a curve. And I was actually really curious about this, so I called up a professional bowler. He was so excited. I don't think he gets a lot of calls about education. He said the reason why the ball has to enter at a curve is because you will knock down more pins and create a bigger domino effect if you enter at that angle. But in order to do that, you have to change your aim. In order to knock down the most pins with one shot, he aims for the pins that are the hardest to hit. Now let's just let this sink in for a second. We are taught to teach the head pins. We are not taught to teach to the kids who are the furthest and the hardest to get to, the kids with autism, the kids with Down syndrome. The part that's critical here, and it really aligns with universal design for learning, is that so often the supports that we design for those kids on the outside of the lane are actually supports that all of the kids need. This is the part we need to understand if inclusive education is going to move forward in Canada. How can we find this value of diversity in our classrooms between the students? This is not just important for the outside pins, but it's critical for every single one of us. And just think, all we need to do is change our aim. Look how bowling changed education.
Ok. Alors, vous avez suivi le vidéo.
Okay, so I hope that you were able to follow the video. There are some elements mentioned by the girl speaking in the video. So I would like to give you like 1 minute to personally think about what you have just watched, about what you have just heard, which are the elements for an inclusive education and why. And also about the impact on our job when it comes to education, of course. So you will have 1 minute of personal thinking, let's say, and after that, we will split the participants into different breakout rooms so that you will have the possibility to talk in groups and share your points of view. So actually, the breakout rooms have just finished, and now we are all in the plenary session, let's say, in the plenary room. So you were able to rejoin us perfectly on time. I just would like to invite you all to select once again and activate once again the interpretation.
Click it again because you'll use it when you go in the breakout room. So make sure you are in the good interpretation. Voilà. You can go, Denis.
Merci. Ok, merci.
Okay, thank you. So we were able to jump in and out of the different groups, and the main question was about the key elements that you were able to get from the video, and also the key elements that are part of your personal knowledge. And I personally wrote down, first of all, raising awareness, and then changing perceptions, so how things work. And this is a real challenge. And then I also heard about adapting curricula and teachers training, also accessibility in terms of infrastructures and tools, instruments that are used to teach. I also heard people about raising awareness, the importance of raising awareness in the population, in people in general. And right now, I would like to give you the floor. So I would like to get a couple of thoughts. Well, I think you forgot something, Denis, because we need to invite the participant to write their thoughts in the chat box. Yes, you're perfectly right. Sorry about that. So we kindly invite you to write all those elements in the chat box so that everybody can see what your thoughts are, which are the key elements for inclusive education according to you. So please write in the chat box those key elements. And if in the meantime, everybody would like to say something to the other participants, just go ahead and we will give you the floor. Maybe use the function to raise your hand, and after that, go ahead. Otherwise, feel free to write your thoughts, your key elements in the chat box. I'm sorry, I cannot raise my hand with the Zoom function, but anyway, there are some points we mentioned together during the breakout room that I personally find really interesting. So we focused on the psychological and social support, and then we talked about tools and instruments to propose, so mainly new technological tools that should be made available. And we also talked about the political framework, so the legal framework that is essential in order to implement inclusive education on the field, apart from all the other elements and key aspects that you've just mentioned, Denis. Thank you very much. Are there some specialists or experts when it comes to the psychological support within our participants and group? Well, yes, actually, in my group, in my breakout room, there was an expert. I cannot see that person anymore in this plenary session. Well, actually, it is really interesting to use these OROS methodologies to give you the possibility to create connections among all of you. So even after the webinar, you can still get in touch with the other participants in order to share maybe thoughts or comments or questions. Do you have other comments or other elements you would like to underline? May I take the floor? Yes, of course. So within our breakout room, we focused a lot on teachers training. Because everything needs to start from teachers trainings, also when it comes to vocational training. So it is interesting to understand if within vocational centers, we provide training to teachers. And if teachers that are present in schools already know how to carry out and implement inclusive education. So according to us, this is an important question. So again, we should really focus on teachers' trainings, on vocational training that should be made institutional by the government in order to focus on inclusive education, or maybe there is the need to have some specific formats to train teachers that are already teaching in classrooms, in schools, where there are children and pupils with specific difficulties or specific needs. So this was another thought that came up in my breakout room. So I heard, so you were talking about two different options. So do you have an answer? Well, what I shared in the breakout room is what we do in Madagascar together with the educational ministry. So together with the educational ministry, we were able to create several formats about inclusive education, and those formats are now used within vocational centers and institutes. We call them vocational centers and institutes. So this is what we are doing right now in Madagascar, but actually we cannot wait for those new teachers to get their license, to get their diploma in order to really start implementing inclusive education. So on the other hand, we also propose another type of training, that is to say ongoing training or on-the-field training, that is proposed to teachers already teaching in schools. And especially to teachers having within their classrooms disabled children and pupils or pupils with specific needs. And again, also for that type of ongoing training, we focus ourselves on the guidelines provided by the ministry. I hope that was clear. Well, yes, I can understand that you use those formats when it comes to teacher trainings within vocational institutes at a national level, and at the same time, you provide ongoing training to teachers that are already teaching, right? Yes, exactly. Okay. So I can see that Karen maybe has a question. Go ahead. Well, it is not really a question. I just would like to add something else. I am not an expert, a specialist when it comes to inclusion. But when we talk about teachers' trainings, I always think that if we have a classroom with several children that are struggling learners, well, in that case, the situation is pretty complex to manage for the teachers, especially in classrooms that are really crowded with 30 or 40 pupils. And I think it is really good to include also some assistance for teachers, actually, in order to provide a better support to pupils and children with special needs. Well, of course, not all schools can afford a system or something like that, but I suppose that that would work very well for teachers in general. That's it. And then I think we have, so this is an intervention that is in line with what UNICEF has said, that is to say that inclusive education is like a process, and this process depends on the context, on the national context of each country. So from country to country, there are different challenges to face. This is obvious. But what we've seen in the video, and actually this is based on my personal interpretation, if the approach so we needed to adjust our approach because we cannot focus only on a certain number of pupils or children, but we need to focus on all of them. Because, as she was saying in the video, sometimes the support we provide to children with special needs is also required by the entire classroom, and that would benefit the entire classroom with no doubt. So I think that this is a slightly different point of view, because if we use methods supporting all the children within the classroom, then of course we support also children with special needs, and we create maybe more balance or a greater environment within the classroom. Then of course, when we have a lot of pupils within the same classroom, we have other additional challenges. So maybe we can get one last comment about the breakout rooms. Yes, I was able to raise my hand. I hope you noticed that. So I just would like to talk about what we said in our breakout rooms. So when we talk about big classrooms, this is like a relative concept, because the number of pupils can vary from 30 to 40 pupils, but also 15 to 20 pupils. And in my country, actually, a normal class counts like 50 pupils. That is normal for us. So it means that one teacher needs to support the 50 pupils at the same time. And frequently within those 50 pupils, we have a lot of children with special needs or specific needs. So their job gets really, really complicated. And it is really difficult to manage such a crowded classroom. And I think that before talking about inclusive education, we should talk about a comprehensive, a total, general education, and also quality education. So first of all, we needed to provide a quality education to everybody, to every single pupil. And then, of course, we needed to talk and focus on inclusive education. Then, as we were saying before, the different peculiarities of countries may influence the management of the situation. And sometimes in some countries, the schools are pretty far away from villages, from residential areas, maybe. So it means that children and pupils need to walk even a lot of kilometers before getting to school. And again, this is an extra complication, an extra difficulty, especially for children with disabilities that needed to cover such a long distance to get to school. And another element to take into consideration is the availability of the school. So schools needed to be near the residential areas or villages. Another element is accessibility. We talk about inclusive education, but if infrastructures are not accessible for children with special needs or disabilities, then again, it is even more difficult for them to attend school. Another element is cost. If education is pretty expensive, if education is not affordable for families, again, that will be an extra difficulty. And in Madagascar, we needed to face all those difficulties and problems. So we needed to, first of all, focus on a really accessible service for children, but also accessible for families from the economic point of view. The educational service needs to be affordable for families, because otherwise in our country, in my country, the majority of children with disabilities will not be able to attend school, as they mainly come from very poor families. So they needed to struggle between their disability and the fact that they wanted to go to school. So this is what we needed to focus on: quality, accessible education, affordable education for everybody. So this is what my contribution. This is what I wanted to add, sorry. Thank you very much for making it clear to everybody. So I now propose you to have like a couple of minutes of break. You can turn off your camera. You can try to relax very quickly. And after that, we will start again with discussion with our Madagascar colleagues. So just a couple of minutes and then we will come back again. Thank you. With our guests and experts from Madagascar, we will have a discussion of about 20 minutes. So I kindly ask to all the participants, apart from the Madagascar expert, to turn off their cameras. And in the meantime, while the experts will speak, please take notes of maybe some questions or challenges that you may identify. So experts will keep their cameras on and we will keep on talking about today's topic, so inclusive education. So I kindly ask to the experts from Madagascar to turn on your cameras so that you can join our discussion group, let's say. So maybe you can say something, maybe just introduce yourself, your name and the association you work for or organization you work for, so that everybody will know something more about you. I can see that we have one missing colleague. I think that everybody's here. Okay. Well, actually, the representative from the ministry is not present. Okay, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody. I'm Satri Ramorson, and I am the director of CPAPAL in Madagascar. And I'm here together with my colleagues from Madagascar. Yes, my name is Manana Marshall. And I'm the president of the main Federation for Education in Madagascar. And actually, as Federation, we try to support children with different disabilities. Maybe we can give the floor to the other participants, yes? So I am Noru, and I am director of the Inclusive Education Project. And I work with the CBM colleagues for this specific project from the technical and financial point of view.
Donc, à mon tour, je suis Louva.
So my name is Louva, and I am the program officer for this team and for this project. Okay, thank you very much. So something that came up during the group discussion is that we talked about perception shifts and changes and challenges, and the fact that it is important to raise awareness in people. And I would like to ask my question to Marshall, specifically about Madagascar. So the platform is also active from the awareness point of view, and I just would like to learn more about this process. So how were you able to implement this process within the context of the project? Because according to me, awareness and raising awareness is definitely really important, especially when we deal with disabilities. So I kindly ask you to share your experience with us. Your mic is not on. Okay, sorry about that. So we try to raise awareness, mainly in population, but we start from political leaders working within the government and local institutions, because at the moment we cannot raise enough awareness, let's say, in communities. So we still need to improve from that point of view. We started focusing on the rights of people with disabilities, working within the different communities of our country. And another problem is that we always work within the context of the project. So we always need to wait for the technical and financial support of the partners involved in the project. And up to this moment, our organization cannot work, let's say, independently without the support received from other members and partners. So yes, we try to raise awareness in people, but on the other hand, we're always in need of extra financial and technical support, also communication support, because we always have gaps in our communication strategies. And we always need a better support in order to address our message to medias in general. And talking again about Madagascar, the majority, let's say, of people suffering from disabilities are also poor people or coming from poor families. So we always try to create new partnerships and collaborations with the communities, with local authorities, local institutions and organizations. But unfortunately, we do not receive a great support from their side. Anyway, we try to do our best in order to support people with disabilities, working again within the context of our project and with the support of our partners from the financial and technical point of view, as I was saying before. So yes, we are doing something, but there is a long way to go, especially when it comes to raising awareness. And especially within some geographical areas or villages or even institutions, because in some cases it is necessary to strengthen the initiatives and actions that are already in place, but that are not enough. May I add something about this? Yes, of course, feel free to jump in whenever you want. So I just would like to go back to awareness, because awareness is crucial. And it is crucial in order to start a behavioral change within the community vis-a-vis of disabled children, because disabled children are always the object of stigmatization. So let's say that this is like a taboo subject. The majority of families try to hide, let's say, their children with disabilities, and this is a big problem. They do that because it is difficult to, let's say, admit it and accept it when dealing with the rest of the community. So those children are isolated from the rest of the society. And children with disability are in danger. That's another reason why parents try to hide them. So in all those cases, it is really necessary to raise awareness in order to start a behavioral change. And then we were talking about the transformation when it comes to inclusive education. This is definitely really needed. And Madagascar has an experience of, let's say, 100 years when it comes to the education offered to children with disabilities, because back in 1924, the Catholic Church started providing specific trainings for blind children. And after that, other centers were created for deaf children, for example, or children with other disabilities. And so there were in the past some specific centers where children with disabilities could attend some specific trainings. Then just some years ago, we started talking about the inclusive education system or inclusive education policy. So children with disabilities are not sent, let's say, to specialized centers, but to traditional schools. And in order to, let's say, accept also this change, we really need awareness, and we need to raise awareness in the entire community. If I can take the floor talking about raising awareness, I just would like to add that awareness is really important when it comes to the implementation of inclusive education, especially in Madagascar. So when we work on the field, we notice that we do not only have to raise awareness in families or parents of children with disabilities, but also in families having children without disabilities, because sometimes it is difficult to create, let's say, a relationship. So what we need to do is to create discussions and debates with the schools and municipalities and churches as well, in order to, again, raise awareness in the entire population, not only families of children with disabilities. So this is another initiative or activity that is necessary when it comes to the inclusive education system. So we really need to take it into consideration. Another aspect concerns raising awareness in the players within the education system. So not only families and parents, but also teachers and school directors, and in general, people working within the educational field, so that we will be sure about including 100% children with disabilities, because they only share one goal, that is to say, to train children, to educate children. But it is maybe necessary to implement mindset shift, because right now we need to say that everybody has the right to education, independently from disabilities, of course. So when we talk about inclusive education, we also needed to talk about the acceptance of parents, the acceptance of parents of the disability of their child or children, because we frequently meet families that do not know that their child suffers from psychological disability, for example. So this is a huge problem. It means that families and parents always accuse schools if children do not behave well or if children do not have good school results. So when we started our inclusive education project, we really started this process, as you were saying before, Denis. It is a real process because we need to focus on several aspects: awareness, training, communication, and so on and so forth. But the main pillar is the full engagement and commitment of all the players involved within the educational field. So we need to work with teachers, parents, the minister and Ministry of Education and the government in general. We need to create a synergy among all those players in order to foster inclusive education. And even if we work within the religious field, it doesn't mean that we don't want to work with governmental institutions or other organizations present on the field. On the other hand, we really wanted to create a synergy. We really wanted to work with several other associations and institutions so that we can reach one common goal, because we can only reach that goal if we all work together in a shared way. Talking again about awareness, I would like to say that in Madagascar, we have public and private schools. And thanks to the governmental policies, it is now possible to carry out some awareness campaigns in public schools to address teachers, school personnel, and pupils. Then, of course, we needed to foster our campaigns for awareness, especially in rural areas, in areas that are difficult to achieve, maybe. Merci beaucoup. Donc, nous sommes presque arrivés. Sorry. So thank you very much. We are almost at the end of our debate, of our discussion. So I can understand from what you're saying that it is necessary to receive support from the government, from the ministry. We also need the support of the legal framework. We also need to involve the different players involved within the educational field. And you also mentioned the importance, as you all work with a parents association, you were talking about raising awareness in parents and not only in families where our children with disabilities live, but also in families where there are no children with disabilities. Then, of course, we need to take into consideration regional differences and geographical differences within the country. So maybe just a quick comment before proceeding to breakout rooms again. Yes, so I totally agree with what you are saying right now. And I just would like to say that inclusive education is now actively part of the new policies of the actual government. And of course, we needed to carry out and create new partnerships and collaboration agreements with several organizations, associations, with the religious world, again, in order to strengthen our action. But I have to say that we have a lot of initiatives going on at the moment, and it is only thanks to the support of our partners if we were able to make some steps forward and to implement our inclusive education process. So thanks to our inclusive education platform, we were able to adapt also, for example, low tax. So we were able to reach the education, the Ministry of Education, in order to make some changes within laws. So again, our strength relies on partnerships and on the support provided by our partners. And this platform is made of, let's say, almost all the players working within the inclusive education system or field of Madagascar. So we also have ASHI, but also the Ministry of Education. We also have UNICEF and other organizations, the Organization for Disabled People, and so on and so forth. So again, it is only thanks to this platform and to the support of the different members and players if we were able to take some steps forward within the inclusive education field. Thank you very much. I really would like to thank all the different participants to this short debate. I really would like to give the floor to the other participants right now, to those who are taking notes during this discussion, so we can go back to the plenary session right now. So you now have the possibility to go back to breakout rooms in order to talk about maybe questions or doubts that you may have, to clarify them. And I also ask you, for each group, for each breakout room, to write down some things that you heard during the debate and that really touched you, or that you found particularly interesting. Okay, thank you very much. And I hope you had the possibility to talk about interesting themes and aspects. And I would like to give the floor to a couple of participants, let's say, to talk about what you've discussed about in your breakout room. Maybe a person that didn't take the floor in the previous round, and a person willing to share their thoughts. Ina, would you like to jump in and share maybe some of your thoughts?
Denis, désolé de dire, mais Ina n'était plus présente. Donc,
so sorry to say that, but Lina was not present in the group I was in, so that breakout room didn't work. Well, I'm so sorry to hear that. So maybe, okay, so you weren't able to discuss in group, so you cannot take the floor. Is there somebody else willing to jump in and say something? Somebody else?
Bonjour à tout le monde, bonsoir à chacun de nous.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you can hear me. And can you hear me? Yes, yes, we can hear you. I cannot turn on my camera, but I hope it is fine anyway. So we talked about greater inclusion within the educational field. That is definitely necessary, of course. And we also talked about getting more trainings to teachers, especially when it comes to some specific subjects, making them able to face the needs of children with disabilities. And we also said that governments should be involved in this process. The government should take action in order to create more suitable infrastructures, and structures should also create a psychological service available for free in schools that every single child can use. And maybe a suggestion that we can provide to teachers is that they shouldn't focus on the specific needs of children with disabilities, but they just need to focus on learning, on giving them the possibility to learn, and they don't have to make them feel like left behind or isolated from the rest of the classroom. Concerning the ideal context, we think that it would be necessary to carry out a study or a research to identify the needs of children. And of course, it is necessary to avoid any kind of discrimination towards children with special needs or disabilities. And of course, if the other members of the group would like to add something, feel free to jump in. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Theodore. So I would like to propose you to go on the Padlet. So again, you find the link in the chat box. If you can just click on that link, you will open up the Padlet page. And on the Padlet page, you will find the 3 questions. First of all, what is the most valuable lesson I will take away from this webinar? So what you will remember about this webinar. Second question, in what ways will the ideas from this webinar impact or influence my future work from a tangible, real, concrete point of view? And third question, what do I leave here and throw, let's say, in the bin? So some ideas or thoughts that don't work anymore and you're gonna leave here. So following each question, you will see like a little cross. You just click on it and then write your comment. And I can invite you all to provide answers to these 3 questions so that we will have, let's say, a collective collection of the different key elements of our webinar. You can also add a like or a dislike, let's say, not like to the different answers provided by the other participants on the Padlet. Nadine is already doing that, as you can see. So if you particularly like an answer, you can click on the like button. So you now have 6 minutes to complete this task and to provide an answer to each question on the Padlet that we will use later on in order to gather, let's say, all your thoughts.
Est-ce que c'est tout le monde, c'est clair pour tout le monde comment vous pouvez ajouter des
Is
commentaires?
everything clear? I mean, is it clear how to add comments? And of course, the answer. So you needed to click on that little cross, as Nadine is showing you right now. Of course, you need to do it every single time under each question.
Merci Nadine.
Thank you, Nadine, for showing us.
Il y a déjà pas mal de
So
conclusions.
we already have some conclusions, some answers.
À laisser ici et à jeter dans la poubelle.
And at the moment, nobody added a comment under the third question. So what to throw in the bin?
OK. Je crois que
Okay, so
il y a plusieurs éléments
I think we have
des ressources
mentioned several topics and
autour des ressources
themes, aspects about resources,
les classes, les enfants, le nombre.
and also classrooms. We talked about the number of pupils in a single classroom. We talked about the different processes that needed to be supported 100%. We talked about raising awareness. We talked about the role played by parents, which is fundamental.
Et voilà que le système ségrégatif est plutôt quelque chose qui est en général dans notre société.
And
Qu'il faut un changement
we talked about the several processes actually that are ongoing in our societies and also the need of a mindset shift. There is a person wondering if inclusive education is possible or not. I think so. I am deeply convinced that it is possible. And we have already seen some good examples. So maybe the most appropriate question would be, where are we on this path, on this journey?
Des ressources. Oui, il y en a.
And the resources, yes, there are some resources.
Je propose que vous gardez le lien.
Maybe you can keep the link of this Padlet, the link to this Padlet, or even better, the link we shared with you at the beginning of the webinar, that is to say the main page of the Padlet. So you can find the link once again in the chat box so that you will have the possibility to watch several videos and read some more materials and more resources. And I will personally add some extra resources I'm aware of. And of course, you can feel free to share with the rest of the group your personal resources or add anything you want on that Padlet, if you think that that would be interesting and useful for the rest of the group. Do you think it will work, adding resources on the Padlet? Okay. So I can see that we're still receiving some comments. Maybe I can give you some extra 30 seconds.
Et je laisse la parole à Beatrice.
And now I'm going to give the floor to Beatrice or maybe to Nadine. I'm not sure about that, actually, in order to do the final remarks and to conclude today's webinar. So what I just would like to tell you is thank you. Thank you all for your participation. I would like to thank all the colleagues and experts from Madagascar. I would like to thank all the participants for your engagement and commitment, especially during the breakout rooms. So have a good night, and I hope to see you pretty soon.